What's going on, guys? So before we get started, I'd like to talk about GearBest. They were kind enough to sponsor this video, and if you're not aware of GearBest, you should definitely hit up your browser and head on to gearbest.com. They sell some incredibly cool stuff at an incredibly low price point. So you've got some amazing tech products like smartwatches under 50 bucks, action cameras under 50 bucks, and basically every single tech product that you can think of. And they're not limited to tech, so they have you covered. There's a link in the description waiting for you guys, so definitely check them out, and I'm pretty sure you'll end up getting something amazing for yourself. What's going on, guys? So a couple of months ago in summers, I got a chance to go out on a vacation, and luckily I spent about a week with the Galaxy S6 Edge, and believe it or not, it was the first Samsung flagship phone that I've used this close to my daily. Well, anyways, when you first pick up the phone, or actually forget about picking it up, when you first see the phone, it screams quality. It's completely constructed out of glass at the back and at the front, except for that metal rim that wraps up the phone. The metal rim does get incredibly hot in performance, but I'll get to that in a bit. Talking about that glass, it's actually a Corning Gorilla Glass 4 at the back, which is actually a pretty strong one. But I'm always kind of skeptical about dropping it up and cracking the glass. Also, it's a big fingerprint magnet, plus it sort of makes the device a bit slippery. For personally me, I kind of like the phone changing colors. It's a very reflective glass at the back. But if you actually look at the front of the phone, you might not really be able to tell the difference between this and any other Samsung phone ever made. It has got the same two touch off capacitive buttons beside the home button, and the home button is a pretty special one over here. It's actually much more tactile, plus it's a fingerprint scanner, and it's like land and sky better than the one on the S5. It's actually very easy to set up. You can add up to 5 fingerprints. Plus, you don't really need to swipe on the button anymore. All you gotta do is tap on it and boom, you're in. Well, if the device recognizes you at all. Which in my case, it didn't most of the times. It's not that accurate, plus it's not that fast, so it's definitely not the best of the best. The speed can be actually increased with software updates, which I'm looking forward to from Samsung. If we move up from the home button, you'll find hands down one of the best displays on a smartphone to exist as of now. It's got a size of 5.1 inches, just like the S5 from previous year, but it's got a Quad HD resolution that is basically 2560 by 1440 pixels scattered over a screen size of 5.1 inches. That's a lot resolution for such a small screen size, which basically means you have a ridiculously high amount of pixel density. And over here it's a 577 pixels every single inch, which is crazy high. So pixelation is not a thing over here. Viewing angles are incredibly amazing because it's a Super AMOLED display, so colors were also really on point and vivid and beautiful. It also gets crazy bright outdoors, so you don't really have any problems with outdoor visibility. But the best thing about it was that resolution. I just keep coming back to it. I watched freaking 1440p videos and they were crazy sharp. Not sure how many people would actually watch them, but from my side, they're highly recommended. So now we have one of the best designs, probably the best display. Let's talk about performance. Or you know what? Let's talk about software first, because that's what interested me the most this time. Okay, so listen, I never really thought that I would actually ever say this, but I kinda like TouchWiz this time. This time, I did multitasking. I browsed through web incredibly smoothly, checked my email, played some high-end games, and basic stuff that even previous flagships used to hang up in. It's all gone. It's night and days better than the one on the S5 or basically any previous other flagship from Samsung. But just like the early days, TouchWiz still has a lot of features, and I didn't really expect to say this, but I kind of used a couple of them a lot. And probably the best of them was multitasking. You can basically use 2 apps at the same time and save a lot of time. It's also incredibly snappy, which I didn't really expect from it, but the overall experience of TouchWiz has been really snappy, way above my expectations. Definitely a thumbs up. But actually, TouchWiz is not really the same on every Samsung phone. For example, it is different on the S6 and on the S6 Edge, and even on the S6 Edge Plus, probably because of that edge. Well, talking about the S6 Edge, if you're buying the Edge variant of the S6, you're probably sending over $100 more just for that curved screen. So you better get something valuable. Now Samsung has a lot of features for the Edge screen, which are really interesting, but might not be the most useful in the daily life. Well, first of all, there's the People Edge, which I like to call the speedier way of speed dial. There's a little card-like thing on the top right corner of the edge. If you swipe from there, you get a couple of contacts that are basically the contacts that you communicate the most with. And you can manually set those with the settings, and basically what this People Edge does is that it gives you an option to call them or message them directly without actually going into the dialer and finding to call them. In my testing period, I actually forgot about this feature completely, so I ended up going to my dialer and finding those contacts. That was kind of stupid of me, but I'm pretty sure that would definitely happen with a couple of folks. There's also one sweet little feature that Samsung calls as Night Clock, which activates when the phone is locked. So if you swipe on one of the edges of the phone, you basically get a night clock and you can swipe to get all your notifications. I also forgot about this because I usually ended up pressing the home button to know the time and to check out all my notifications right on the lock screen. Last but not the least is that when you place the phone on a flat surface, screen first on a silent mode, and you get a call from somebody, you basically get this extremely cool effect of light flowing in and out of different colors you have assigned to the contact. Now again, I'm not too sure how many people will actually lie their phone face first on a flat surface, but at the end of the day, a highly improved custom UI from previous years, really smooth and no hangups at all. Now one thing to note is that one of the major reasons for TouchWiz being so smooth this time is the specifications that this thing comes up with. So it has 3GB of RAM, but the major thing is the octa-core Exynos processor, 4 of which are clocked at 1.5 GHz and the other 4 at 2.1 GHz, and this thing literally nails it at the benchmarks. Now first of all, it does not hang up, as I said earlier, but it does get really hot. Well, at least the bezels. Now since this is the Edge variant, there's already so much less to hold on to with, and since the rim or the boundary of the phone is made out of aluminium, it gets really hot. But other than that, there's hardly any flaw that I could come across with. You can basically fly through all the apps, open at the same time, do multitasking, play high-end games, and you just won't hang up. So definitely a really smooth and speedy experience, but it does get hot. Talking about speed, let's talk about the camera, because that is probably the best thing on the smartphone. Fun fact, the camera on this thing is always running in the background, so if you double tap the home button, you are in the camera app just under a second, which is incredible and happens to be one of my favorite features on this phone. But coming back to the rear, you got a highly protruding camera from the body of the phone, which is a 16 megapixel sensor that can shoot videos up to 4K and has also got an f1.9 of aperture. It's not the widest in the industry, with the LG G4 having an aperture of f1.8, but this is definitely not disappointing. The images that come out from this thing are hard to believe that they came from a smartphone. They're crazy sharp, the colors are on point, it focuses really quickly, plus the images look really good even on a desktop, which is really good. Talking about the actual camera app, I would say it's really clean. You've got various features that you can play around with, but probably the best out of those will be the manual mode. It basically gives you a full control over your cameras. You can manually set the focus to achieve the perfect blur. You can manually set the white balance and set the lighting conditions using ISO. And then you've got shutter speed, which basically breaks the limit of creativity. At the end of the day, there's just one little nitpick that I came across with while using the camera. The images that I took from the S6 Edge were a little bit more sharp than what they appear to be in the viewfinder. So this is basically happening in the processing aspect of the phone, and I think Samsung can easily fix that using a software update, and if it does that, you probably have a no-brainer deal over here. But wait, to power up 577 pixels every single inch, an Exynos octa-core processor, a dual edge display, you need a lot of power. And over here is the 2600 mAh battery, which to be honest is a higher one from the S6, but it's probably the most disappointing factor about this device. It's very unusual, so you can't really predict it, but some days I got a full day of usage, and some days it ended just by 5 o'clock in the evening, which is pretty bad. Definitely something Samsung needs to improve on. And so there you have it. Thanks a lot for watching this video. Feel free to stick around because there is a lot of content coming out in the near future that you might just not want to miss. Thanks a lot for watching again, and take care.